Alright, so last time when we left off, just got the dash bar out. So it's got to be cleaned up, and then I'm going to get some of the wiring on the inside of the chassis done. Also going to try and clean that up. I don't know if I'm going to keep it or sell it. Probably sell it. I could keep from the actual column up though. So yeah, most of the wiring is just free hanging right now. Everything is loose. Some of it's underneath the carpet. It goes all the way down the chassis from the driver's side on the S13 left-hand drive. So I'm going to try and get some of this organized, figure out what I need and what I don't need. And then once I do that, I'm going to try and explain what goes where, just to kind of give it a more detailed process. So for the dash bar, I'm actually going to be using this Purple Power. Got it from O'Reilly's. It's really good. So after the initial degrease, it's looking a little bit better. Not too much though. So I'm going to spray some water on it while I'm wire brush sanding it, whatever. And we're going to see how good it can turn out to be. If it doesn't get much better than this, I probably will replace it with the one off the parts car. But hopefully I won't have to do that because that's a lot of bolts. So yeah, I'll cut to when it's looking a little bit better. So the metal came out okay. Just some deep oxidation on some of it. It's not anything like rust or anything that would really apply to rust. Came out pretty clean. I do have a little bit of extra undercoat / rust barrier. So I'm gonna let it dry off, but until that's dry, I need to start hacking at these wires, figuring out what goes where and how to do what. And because the wiring specialties harness comes through the same spot over here, goes across, comes back through here, and it has the tail lights and I think it's one other function in the back. But there's basically all the other functions not needed for a drift car. They're just left out. So it's basically headlight motors, turn signals, and whatnot. Actually, the headlight motors don't even come with it. So what I'm thinking is whenever I get the dash put back in with the center console and everything together, I'm going to put a little bitty switch and a kill switch. Right next to the kill switch is going to be the headlight motor to make these beautiful headlights pop up and down. But the main thing about the car, I couldn't go without them. Other than that, everything should route right to where the OEM harness goes to for it to click right into the Wiring Specialties 2JZ harness for the 240SX. So that shouldn't be too bad. I also need to go ahead and get this battery relocated. I've been prying at this for hours and it is welded in pretty well. With this car, it's so flimsy that the entire frame will bend before you can get the actual battery tray out. But I'm still going to figure out which of these wires work and which don't, so that I can use them elsewhere, figure out a use for them, because none of this is going to be wasted. So I will cut back whenever I have a better idea of what I'm handling with. Okay, so what I figured out so far is these go to the left side of the steering wheel for the buttons on the hub. This is, of course, the dash and everything else connected to the dash. This is the right side of the steering wheel hub, all the buttons on that. And then this jumble of everything is all the climate control. So these actually don't look bad at all. I'm still gonna have to test them all whenever I get a battery for the car. But from first glance, none of these look bad. I might even be able to get away without getting a whole nother harness. I didn't think I'd be that lucky. So over there, all that's gonna basically be cut. Nothing on that side of the car really needs wiring other than the headlight motor and then the headlights, of course. So I don't think that side's gonna really be necessary. Nothing air-wise. There's not gonna be any door panels on the car. Everything's gonna be manual, so it shouldn't necessarily be needed, but I guess we'll see further along. But I do know that these are not needed. I'm gonna use some of these to wire a different gauge cluster on the top of the dash. And then of course, this will have to be altered. Not too much though. It's gonna be the OEM Sylvia dash. So that's a little bit different. I think it's just a couple of these wires are changed, but you can of course figure that out. And then these will still be used as well as these. And now that I have this figured out and everything kind of an idea of what it does, I have to take a look at all of these wires that go all the way to the back of the harness. All the way back there for the tail lights and turn signals and everything. The window actuators, they're not really going to be used. I'm going to keep them here though, especially since it says caution, do not remove. But yeah, I'm going to keep them plugged in and everything. Not really going to be using the automatic seat belts or anything like that. So that'll be fun to figure out. All right, so the entire dash support bar is completely covered in 2 coats of the rust barrier. So now that that is done, I am going to leave these just the way they are. There's no issues with those, as they're just support bars. But this is going to cause issues, because I could disconnect it from here, but if I did that, I'd have to clean the entire thing again and basically take it all apart, make sure it's all working right. Or I could take the entire steering column connected to the front subframe and the steering rack and all this, and just take it off and connect it to this car, and that way it'll be fine. There'll be no issues doing that. That's the easier thing to do. I haven't really taken a look at these wires yet, but I do know that that goes straight to the handbrake, which is going to have to be moved over there for the hydraulic handbrake. So that'll be fun figuring out. I've never hooked up one of those. It'll be the first. But I'm still looking at some of the routing for these rear wires, how they work, where they go, and just everything about them, just so I can know. I do know that there are 2 ground cables connected to the top of the hatch on each side. That's the 2 wires that are hanging down. But other than that, I'm completely new to the rear side of the chassis harness, but I will check back in whenever I have a little bit more knowledge. So I'm holding up the hatch. I did want to correct myself. So that side does have a ground. This side actually comes up and around, and this helps with the I don't even know. I think it's some type of, looks like some type of motor, judging by the cylinder shape of it. But so the taillights, I do have all the wiring for it. I don't have the actual housing for the bulbs though. I have the housing for the lights itself and not for the bulbs. So whenever I pick those up, I'll be able to wire them together. But everything kind of just goes down past the first seat, and then in between the driver's seat and the driver's passenger seat, or not driver's passenger seat, but passenger, the driver's side back seat, it swaps over to the passenger side of the harness and then follows it back. I still have some touch-up paint to do around some of these spots that I missed. But other than that, I've learned a good bit about this wiring setup. I'm going to try and get me a diagram drawn so I can just really study it and better understand it. But this hood, or I mean this hatch, is unbelievably heavy. Like, I would say it's probably upwards of probably 45 pounds. And it's just, I don't know why it's that heavy. This hatch is actually getting replaced. All these holes, I have a brand new hatch off of the parts car, and I'm gonna be picking up probably about a month. Whenever I go, I'm gonna pick up the hatch, over fenders, the entire suspension setup, and then this will basically become a roller again. I'm gonna get the brakes set up, so that'll take a new brake booster, which I did finally get out. It's right underneath there. Can't really open the hood. Got all my multimeters out. But get a new brake booster, run new brake lines, run new everything, get the handbrake set up. And then once I get all that done, that is gonna go where the Z is right now. And it's gonna sit there for a second while I get the entire engine hoist and everything in here. So that way we can work on the 2JZ block, which is very exciting. So far, it's coming along good. I've had this car for about, it's coming out at right about 2 months now. Gotten a lot done. Whenever I got it, of course, it was in terrible condition. The underside was completely covered in rust. And now it's looking a whole lot better. The suspension was so janky, it was impossible to get some of it off. There was no ABS on it before. So everything was locked up. Everything was basically welded together by rust. But yeah, so that's where this is headed. This is just about dry. Now I can't really do anything with this yet because I do have to get what I need off the wiring harness before I can install this again, figure out how I want to route it. But I should be able to get this right back in there within the next couple episodes probably. I do hope I can though, because the wife isn't going to be happy about all this in the yard. So that would be good if I could do that. This worked just as planned. Love it. Always trust it. This subframe is going to be going in soon. As soon as I get those bushings in, it'll go straight in because it's got to go back before I can get the whole suspension set up. The carpet, it's going to stay pulled up for a little bit until I actually get all the wiring and figure this out the right way, because I don't really want to start snipping wires and then find out that it was something that I needed, like turn signals. So I'm really going to take my time with that. Same thing with the back, because any of these wires could be way more important than I would know, especially with like the ground cable over there. So I'm just going to take my time, learn what I need, and learn what I don't need before I just go to snipping. But hopefully, I'm hoping within the next week or so, we can get the dash support bar as well as the dash back in the car. And then as soon as those are back, that'll be in. And then I really got to get my quick release. I have one on the Z, but it's not the same hub, so it wouldn't really fit. But yeah, if I can get the interior looking a little bit nicer, because it was almost a complete interior until I realized all the stuff that's really got to go for it to be a working, functioning drift car. But as soon as the dash is back in, we're going to work on the gauge clusters, work on the steering wheel, get this looking nice again. I still have to find me a bucket seat. I'm looking at the Bride ones. They're pricey though, so that's going to be a little bit. But hopefully at the same time as me finishing the interior, we will have her back on the ground so we can get her rolling around, so that we can actually fit a 2J block in my garage that is incredibly small. Like this is a pretty small car. Like it's not a big car, and there's just a little bit of space on each side, and that's what I'm working with. There's nowhere else I could really keep this, and the actual parts car is all the way up above Huntsville, which is like 2 hours from where I live. So it's a drive and a half to get there and back whenever I need any of the parts. But hopefully I can just figure out what all I need and get it all on the first trip. But yeah, that's all I got for today. Didn't do too much work. Did just enough to where I can say I did something. But hopefully in this next week or so, this will start looking a whole lot cleaner, because it's unmotivating seeing it like this. But I know whenever that dash support bar, the dash, the gauges and everything, it's gonna just come together. I do need to take that off, so I probably will take that off before the end of this video, and just kind of show the process of how to take one off, just so that I can list it on Marketplace or something, because I don't really need it or want it. So yeah, I'm probably gonna do that real quick. Just give me 1 second. There we go. That's much better in my opinion. So this one, these came off the same. This is also off the parts car. Blue, red. I don't get it. Also, this one does not even have the manual window. I don't even know what it's called. I think it's called a clock spring. Looks like a clock spring, at least. That's what I'm gonna call it. But it doesn't have the manual window clock spring. I hope I locked it. That right there. Nowhere to be found. Probably somewhere in the dirt at the other parts car. So yeah, this is done. I'm probably gonna do some Goo Gone, get rid of all this stickiness. Same with that one. Whoever had this before didn't get rid of the stickiness. They took that door panel off, didn't take this one off, and didn't take the stickiness off either one of them. But happy to have that done, because I was dreading doing that. Both of them have the windows, which is why I want the actual window clock spring. Just gonna keep going with that, because I mean, this is gonna be like hour drives to and from drift events, so I'm gonna want some windows in case it's raining or something. Yeah, so I'm keeping that door panel right here just in case I ever want to go the full interior restoration one day, like in years, if I want to get all this all the, like everything just putting back together, then I'm gonna keep all the panels, keep all the screws, keep everything really. I have everything that came on this car stock, basically, just about. It's just a matter of figuring out which screws go where. I kept all the screws for the dash and this door right there, so that's kind of easy to locate. But all these other ones, this was in somebody else's hands, so figuring out where they put the bolts, if they even kept the bolts, or if they're in the grass in the middle of Tuscaloosa or something. It's gonna be fun figuring out. But yeah, that's all I have today. That is dry now, looking good. I'm gonna move it into the garage right beside the subframe. So whenever I get all this figured out and diagram up, because so far I have of course, the body kit and then the engine and transmission. Don't have anything for wiring. Once I get that up, I'll probably put all this back just so I can have a basic understanding of, because every car is different. If it's a 240, it's been ran through by like 40 different guys. So you never know what you're getting into with these cars. You don't know what it has or what it doesn't. I was lucky enough because this headlight didn't work whenever I got it, but I was able to manually open it with these Liberty headlight motors. Yeah, you just never know what you're getting into. But that's all for today until probably tomorrow. I plan on working on it again. It just depends on if I have time. But yeah, thanks for checking it out. Later.